I'll try that again. I want to welcome everyone to the December 21st, 2021 Menlo Park Fire Protection Board of Directors meeting. It's 7 p.m. Michelle, would you please call the roll?
Director Bernstein?
Present.
Director Jones?
Here.
Director Crowley?
Present.
Director Solano?
Here.
And Director McLaughlin?
Here. All right, would you please stand and join me in the pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
indivisible,
under God,
with liberty
and justice for all.
All right, Michelle, do we have any public comment?
If there is anybody that would like to provide public comment, please raise your hand or click *9 if you called in. And I see none.
All right, Chief Schaefer, I see you're first up with your fire chief's report.
Thank you, President McLaughlin, directors. A couple of items to report. Last meeting, the directors approved 3 additional FTEs, which is most appreciated. And because of that, we ended up getting up to 8 personnel for our background. Let's see, so we have, I believe we have 4 that are through most of the backgrounds. We have another 2 that are in the middle, and we have 2 that are just beginning, which will bring us up to 8 personnel, which we're hoping to have 8 personnel to go into the March Fire Academy. And that'll bring us up to the 106 FTEs. So thank you again for approving that last meeting. And then also I wanted to bring to your attention that Steve Strom, our longtime fleet supervisor, been with the district for 22 years. He is retiring as of tomorrow. He will be missed. And I just wanted to publicly thank him for all of his hard work and dedication over the years. And I wish him a long, happy, and healthy retirement.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm sure I speak for everyone in wishing Steve Strom best wishes as well in his well-deserved retirement. Any questions or comments for Chief Schaefer? No. Virginia?
Sorry. Mike, can you just please wish Steve Strom good luck in his new adventure, and you know how much we appreciate his service. And I think he's been great. I've been with this district for 10 years and I've enjoyed, you know, some of what Steve has told me, but mainly his ability to do the job. And I think he's been great, and I wish him well.
Thank you very much, Director. I will ensure to convey that message.
Thank you.
And yeah, he had a great sense of humor, and he was a very good mechanic for quite some time, and then moved up to our fleet supervisor. So he will be missed. And we do thank him for his 22 years he gave the district. I'll make sure he hears from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? All right, that brings us to the consent calendar. Is there anyone want to pull anything? Chuck?
Yes, I'd like to pull the minutes, please. There's only 1 minute, but I think it's one item, so I think I have to pull all of them.
Okay.
You mean one item on the minutes,
I'm
Chuck?
sorry.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're requesting to poll number 2, Chuck.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. Rob?
Yeah, I'd like to pull item 2.
All right, so we'll pull that.
Didn't Director Bernstein just pull item 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's already pulled.
It's a redundancy, yeah.
Now I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar, except item 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, Michelle, would you please call the vote?
Director Bernstein,
Aye.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Corrali,
Aye.
Director Solano,
Aye.
Director McLaughlin.
Aye. All right, we'll go back to item 2. Chuck, do you want to address your?
Yes, please. I'm sorry I didn't send this to the clerk of the board before the meeting. I just didn't get time to do it, but I'd like to make an amendment to the minutes of November 10, which is page 7 of our package. And I want to modify the sentence that's right under point number 1 on that page there of the November 10 minutes. It indicates that I left the meeting and returned, which is technically correct, but I think it's misleading. And so I'm being a little defensive here and wanting to correct the record. Nothing substantive occurred during then. When I left, a break was called, and when I returned, the meeting continued. So I'd like the minutes to reflect that a break was called at 11:07. Director Bernstein left the meeting and returned at 11:49 when the break concluded, period.
If there was a break, then we don't need to note what time you left or you returned. If there was a break, it was a break. And we don't have to identify you as leaving the building or anybody else. So I will note that if that's indeed what happened, it's up to the board to approve that that did indeed happen, and it was a break and not one director left the meeting while the meeting continued. So
yep. Jim?
Rob?
Can I just ask, so everybody who was there concurs with what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Rob, are you just expressing your concurrence?
Yeah, I was just going to say that to agree with Chuck's interpretation and representation. May I continue?
Well, why don't we let's act on Chuck's motion first. Can we do this by consent, or do we need to take a vote?
We would need to take a vote, and if Director Solano has an issue with anything else in any of these minutes on item 2, it could be discussed right now, and we can clear that up before voting on this item. Was there something else, Director Solano?
Well, before we do that, I like to take them separately. Rob, do you have the same objection as Chuck, or do you have a different issue?
Well, I have an issue where it says under present.
But is it different than Chuck's? I'd like to deal with.
Yes, it is. Yes,
okay,
it is.
As I understand it, Chuck, we would just, or Michelle, we would just strike any reference to anyone being absent during that period of time. Is that right? Correct.
So I'm gonna change the minutes to report that a break was called at 11:07 a.m. and then the meeting continued at 11:49 a.m.
Okay. So do I need a motion then to accomplish that?
No, you don't. I'm going to note that, and that will be noted. When you make your motion, you could say as amended. So when you make a motion, so whenever somebody makes a motion to approve the minutes, agenda item number 2, you can make the motion as amended.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any objection to the change in the minutes that Chuck is suggesting? Okay, Rob?
Yeah, I'd like under where it says present Jim on November 10th, I'd like to have it a little bit more specific under Director Corali where it says arrived at 1 o'clock. I'd like it worded more specific as saying the morning session that she was absent and arrived at 1 p.m.
I'm not hearing Rob. Are other people having the problem?
I hear him great.
Rob, could you repeat?
I'm sorry, Rob.
No, Jeff, no, I'll say, no, under November 10th, under present, it talks about Director Corrali arrived at 1 o'clock. Well, I'd like it to reflect a little bit more specific, where that she was not present during the morning session because we did break for lunch, and still keep the 1 o'clock time period.
All right.
So I could change that to Director Crowley was not in attendance for the morning session and arrived at 1 p.m. Is that acceptable and accurate?
Well, can I just, I'm fine either way, but I just want to say that this was a meeting, a special board meeting, whether it was a morning session or an afternoon session, it was still a meeting. And, you know, if the board wishes to say that I was absent in the morning session, that's fine, but I still was at the meeting and I just came in late. And why would you differentiate the whole meeting in between for the two sections? I mean, but whatever the board wishes, that's fine. I just want to make it clear that this was one meeting, not two separate meetings scheduled at different times.
All right, any objection?
I could maybe change it to was not in attendance for the morning discussion.
Well, I mean, I guess that's fine. I mean, I just want to know what Director Solano is trying to get here, what he's trying to do, which is fine. Since it's kind of being lobbed at me, I would just like to hear the justification for it. Because it's one meeting, he's making it sound like there were two meetings in one day, which would have actually been in violation of the notice requirement since there was notice for only one meeting.
Jim, may I continue?
Rob?
The reason why I want to differentiate between the actual attendance is that the morning session was when we had the applicants come in with a second round of questioning, which Director Crowley was not present for, and she arrived after we had broken for lunch. So I wanted that distinction there, that it was an important part of the meeting that she was not present for.
All right, any further discussion of this?
Can I just say one thing, Jim? That's
Yeah.
fine. That's fine. You were given notice that I wouldn't be at the meeting, and you had suggested various options, including videotaping this closed session, which would have been a violation of the Brown Act. And I said no, and I wanted to be fair to all the candidates who were being interviewed. And so I specifically recused myself from being at any of the morning sessions since I couldn't be there for all of them. And that's why I was there. And I wanted to make sure that there was a fair process for all the candidates. And I felt that after the first day of interviews, I got a good sense of what the candidates were like. And I finished off the process and also deliberated.
All right. Michelle, could you just describe how you'll amend the minutes?
I was going to write that Director Crowley was not in attendance for the morning discussion and arrived at 1 p.m.
I'm fine with that.
All right, very good. Rob, any other amendments to the minutes?
No, thank you.
All right, very good. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah, I heard Robert second. Michelle, would you call the vote, please?
I'm sorry, just to clarify, Rob Solano or Robert Jones?
Robert Jones.
Thank you.
Two Robs.
Sometimes, okay, I'll continue with the vote. Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Crowley?
Aye.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director McLaughlin?
Aye. All right, that brings us to item 5. I want to refer to my notes here. It's a pleasure to introduce item 5, the appointment of a new fire chief and approval of the employment agreement. It's the culmination of many months of effort by the entire board. Was engaged in this process. We spent many hours reviewing many candidates, and I think we're all driven by the same goal of finding the best person for the position, someone who is going to be a real credit to the position and the district. I want to thank, in particular, Chief Schaefer and Francine Hunt for their diligence, and throughout this whole process, they were really key in making it happen. After going through this long, arduous process, the board unanimously selected Chief Mark Lorenzen as our choice to be our next fire chief. He comes to us from the Ventura County Fire District, another special district where he was chief for more than 10 years, served a total of 31 years with that agency. Stellar credentials, training, education, experience, advanced degrees, and just someone who, again, we're just very, very fortunate to find someone of his caliber. After interviewing Chief Lorenzen, the board directed the district's counsel, Stephen Miller, and me to negotiate an employment agreement. I'm pleased to report that those negotiations are complete. The agreement that I hope we will approve this evening, in which Chief Lorenzen has agreed to, includes the following key terms. I want to take a moment and go over those. The agreement includes a 5-year term, and it's actually a few months more than that, so that we align that 5-year term with the fiscal cycle. A base salary of $300.
Jim, let me just stop you a second.
Yes.
Isn't it with the calendar? Is it with the fiscal cycle, or is it with the calendar year?
The fiscal.
I see. So it's and from July 1 plus those extra months between February and July?
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right. A base salary of $320,000 per year, reimbursement of relocation expenses to a maximum of $20,000, a housing stipend of $2,000 per month, so long as Chief Lorenzen lives in the district, and additional benefits consistent with the district's policies afforded to all other chief officers and commensurate with Chief Lorenzen's experience. Chief Lorenzen will start at the district in February of next year, I believe February 7th to be precise. Copies of the employment agreement have been provided to all board members and are publicly available. At this point, it's my honor to make the motion that the district appoint Mark Lorenzen as its next fire chief and authorize the board president to execute an employment agreement with the chief in a form approved by general counsel and consistent with the terms I just summarized. If this motion gets a second, we will have an opportunity for further board discussion as well as public comment before we vote.
I'll second that motion, Jim.
Very good. Seconded by Virginia. Right. Any comments?
I have a question.
Chuck?
Yeah. Let me just make sure so that I'm clear. We had reviewed a draft of the contract. The contract we're approving is unchanged from the draft. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I'll ask Stephen Miller to verify that.
That is correct, Director Bernstein.
Okay, and then my second question pertains to the availability or not of the contract for the public. Is it posted on our website or is it accessible somehow?
I don't know that it's posted on the website, but it is a public record that's available upon request to any member of the public. It could certainly be posted anywhere that the board directs it be posted.
Well, I mean, I think there's some reason to believe that the press may be interested in the contract. And rather than have somebody do a Public Records Act request.
Press has already received a copy of the agreement.
Oh, all press has?
Who said that?
Those that have asked for it.
I think it would be a good idea to post it on the website in any case.
Director Bernstein, if you don't mind, Director McLaughlin, I just wanted to let you know that we do post all our agreements on the website once they've been fully executed. Currently, it's not fully executed. So, but once if it does become executed, then it'll be posted to the website.
Oh, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Robert, I think you were next.
No, I was just going to pretty much echo what you said, Jim, in terms of your comments about our new chief. I found him to be a very encouraging and exciting person, and I look forward to for him coming on board, and really taking us to the next level that we are looking for someone to take us to.
Good. Virginia?
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to concur with what you and Robert have both said. I think the quality of his answers and the quality of his work product that we saw during the process was fantastic. And I think he will do a really great job for the community. And I think the staff will also appreciate his leadership style. So I'm looking forward to welcoming Chief Lorenzen on board.
Thank you. Any other comments, Rob?
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, I just want to say that, I have all the confidence in the world in our new chief. He has the training, education, and experience that will take us, I'm sure, to another level with this agency. The thing that probably impressed me the most is that the size of the agency that he's coming from, and to help us in the next few years in order to continue our innovative challenges and adventures as a fire district. So I think we're very fortunate to have found him and to concur with him being our chief. Thank you.
Very good. Michelle, is there anyone from the public that would like to comment?
If anybody would like to provide public comment, please raise your hand now or click *9 on your phone if you called in. And I see none.
All right, if there's nothing further, please call the vote.
Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Thank you. Director Crawley?
Aye.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director McLaughlin?
Aye. Well, let me be the first to congratulate you, Chief Lorenzen. Do you have any words that you'd like to share with us?
I am on the line. Can you all hear me and see me?
Yes, we can.
Right. Perfect. Well, first of all, thank you. I'm humbled by the trust that you've placed in me. Excited to serve the community and the board and the employees that have made Menlo Park Fire Protection District what it is. It's got just a tremendous reputation, and from everything that I've seen and felt, it already feels like home. So really looking forward to getting started on February 7th. You guys have a wonderful fire protection district and amazing people that work there, and just looking forward to coming on board and making a difference. So again, thank you for the vote of trust and confidence. I promise to be a good steward of everything that is Menlo Park. So, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And again, I look forward to working with you. All right, our next item is selection of an acting chief to serve after Chief Schaefer's departure and before Chief Lorenzen's arrival. You know, I know Robert Jones submitted something he'd like us to consider before we take this item up. I would like to suggest, Robert, that we deal with them separately. We deal with the acting chief's position first, and then address your the item that you raised. Is that acceptable to you?
Yeah, for the sake of moving the agenda along the way, I'm pretty much, I'm gonna accept it. I will accept that because it has really not totally 100% affecting this particular decision before us right now, but it's, well, anyway, I'm not gonna get into the conversation. Yeah, Jim.
Okay, thank you. Virginia?
I do have something to say, but I mean, I'd like to hear, I mean, there was no staff report on this issue. So I would like to hear what is going to be presented to this board before I make my comments.
All right. You know, as I mentioned, we have to appoint an acting chief to serve for that period, that 4 or 5 weeks between Chief Schaefer and Chief Lorenzen. We also may want to consider other issues involving compensation for whomever is selected. I know Chief Schaefer has made a recommendation regarding an acting chief for that period of time. So, Chief, I'll ask you to present your recommendation.
Thank you, President, Directors. After careful consideration, I would like to recommend Chief Dan Coyle be placed in the acting position upon my retirement and until Chief Lorenzen begins his term as the fire chief. Chief Coyle has my full support.
Jim, can I make a comment now?
Yes, please do.
So next to appointing the new fire chief, selecting this acting fire chief is probably the single most important decision we'll make tonight. And during this 5-week period, there'll be a transition and the change of command before our new permanent chief officially starts. And I think we should consider the following when we're appointing the acting chief. I'm a little dismayed that there was no staff report in our board packet for the public to see or for the board to see in terms of the recommendation. But I would like to look at all of the options instead of one recommendation given by a staff member. As much as I respect Chief Schaefer, someone that I would like to see is someone who will truly be here on an interim basis so that a smooth transition can happen for Chief Lorenzen. By having someone in the interim role who could be the permanent deputy chief would potentially have a chilling effect on our new chief to appoint someone he thinks would be a better fit for this position and vis-a-vis his command team and what he wants. This signaling to our new chief, to me, is tantamount to micromanaging and can be construed as the board's desire to have Chief Lorenzen appoint the deputy chief who has been recommended, whom the board wants tonight as well. Number 2, someone who understands the rules and procedures on year-end governance, both operationally and statutorily for the board so that the fire district will be ready to successfully transition to Chief Lorenzen, and that really just comes with experience. Number 3, if there is an unexpected delay in Chief Lorenzen's arrival and thus his start date, the acting chief could be our fire chief for a period of time. Therefore, the experience and knowledge of the acting chief will be crucial. So I would like to suggest that we look at all of our choices for acting chief. And for me, those choices are from the current command staff based on their longevity, professional experience, and interactions and involvement with the community. And further, an acting interim truly must be temporary. In this case, I want our new chief, Mark Lorenzen, to start off fresh and putting together his command team. So having someone who is truly interim would be my preference. And looking at our choices, I would like to move that we make former Menlo Fire Chief, Chief Harold Chapelhoman, our acting fire chief. Chief Chapelhoman has served as fire chief for 15 years and spent his entire 40+ year career in our district. He would be or could be a contracted employee and tie up loose ends for successful transition to Chief Lorenzen. So that's my motion.
You're making the motion now, Virginia?
Yes, I am.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Michelle, would you please call the vote?
Director Bernstein,
Nay.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Crawley,
Aye.
Director Solano,
Nay.
Director McLaughlin.
No. All right, is there any further discussion regarding Chief Schaefer's recommendation? I would like, Chuck?
Yeah, I was just going to make a motion that we appoint Chief Dan Coyle as interim fire chief until Mark Lorenzen comes aboard.
Is there a second?
I'll second that, Jim.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? You know, I would just like to say that, you know, in my discussions with Chief Schaefer on this topic, I have gained this and other topics. I will say I've gained great respect and trust for Chief Schaefer. I found his judgment to be well-reasoned, always with the best interests of the district in mind, intelligently thought through. He, you know, has 30 years of experience with the district and knows, you know, the recommended candidate very well. So I have the utmost confidence that Chief Schaefer's recommended candidate will be will perform very well for the handful of weeks required. Virginia?
Thank you. I just want to say that I do respect Chief Schaefer. I've worked with him for a very long time, but I think that the job of a chief public administrator is to give all of the options rather than really making the decision for us, which seems like is the case here. And it has nothing to do with Chief Schaefer. It just happens to be, for me, a good governance issue where the deciding elected body should receive all of the alternatives. That's what I think is the right process. And this is no knock on Dan Coyle. I think he's a smart chief, battalion chief, which is his rank right now. I think that, you know, he's done a great job, but I just don't think that, you know, when you're in a permanent position that, well, where he could be, I guess, be seen as possibly the next deputy chief and pretty much knocking out anyone else just because, you know, this is a preference by Chief Schaefer. And I don't think that Chief Schaefer should be making this decision. I think this is the board's decision and we should have been given alternatives.
Rob, I think I saw your hand.
Thank you, Jim. I value Chief Schaefer's recommendation and evaluation. He's been our interim chief for a short time, but he's done an outstanding job. And I value his input. And that's why I'm going with the recommendation to make Chief Coyle the acting or interim chief until Chief Lorenzen can take command. Thank you.
All right, Chuck?
Yeah, excuse me. I wanted to make it clear that my motion was for Dan Coyle to be the interim fire chief. Has absolutely nothing to do with him serving in the future as the deputy chief or a division chief or a battalion chief or anything else. He has served for the last 6 months as the interim chief's deputy. He is, I believe, second to Chief Schaefer, the most knowledgeable person administratively and I believe is very knowledgeable about what is going on currently, what the issues are, and what we need to deal with in the next several months. And then finally, I had occasion to be briefed by him on some very arcane and complicated issues involving reimbursements by the for our deployments, both federal and state. And I found him to be knowledgeable, smart, and very communicative in terms of his ability to explain things. So I've worked with him directly. I don't see why he couldn't be the interim chief. I think he's the most knowledgeable, and that's as far as it goes. I don't want to in any way have my motion be interpreted as a recommendation for who should be a deputy chief or not. That's entirely up to Chief Lorenzen and has nothing to do with the motion that I have made in this meeting.
Robert?
Jim, I know that we it kind of initially agreed that the thing that the document that I sent out will be taken second after this. And I know there's a motion on the table, but in listening to what's going on, I think that, you know, I will wait if you still think it's apropos, but I think the board really needs to kind of step back and look at, I don't know Dan as much as well as some maybe interaction with him. I find him to be a very intelligent, smart, and I trust Chief Schaefer. And he have been in that position or deputy and been shadowing Chief Schaefer for what, over 6 months now. And I think there's value in that in and of itself, because of the work that you have done in that position. And I think moving forward, I think there's a combination of things that need to happen. And so that's propelled me to put together this particular document that I want to share with the board, because it doesn't matter really who's there in that position, because it's for a short period of time. You know, hell can't break loose, excuse the expression, within a 6-week period of time before the news come in. But what happens in the interim can shape what the momentum, what the effort for the news chief coming in and the morale and boosting and et cetera, the people that are here. So I don't know, I will wait, but I think this is, it really will intersect with where we are now with trying to going through this decision making on Chief Coyle. So.
All right, we have a motion and a second. If there's nothing further, I'll ask Michelle to call the vote.
Yes, let me just quickly ask for public comment. If there's anybody that would like to provide public comment, please raise your hand or click *9 on the phone. And I see none. I'll continue with the roll call. Director Bernstein.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Crawley.
No.
Director Solano.
Aye.
Director McLaughlin.
Aye. All right, well, I want to again be the first to congratulate Coyle. A second item here, associated item, is the compensation issue. When we elected to name Chief Schaefer increase in pay, our policy would permit up to a 10% increase. Is there a motion to do something similar for Dan Coyle?
Jim, you kind of cut out. I couldn't hear your complete sentence. Sorry.
sorry. As I mentioned, we increased Chief Schaefer's pay by 5% when he was appointed acting chief. We need to consider whether or not we want to do the same for Dan Coyle. Our policy allows up to a 10% increase. Chuck? Chuck?
Yes, I for one feel like I would need to know more about current compensation and role and as a battalion chief and so forth. And I think it's something that should be considered in closed session. So I would request that we consider this in a closed session. I believe that it's some temporary bump in compensation is merited, but to resolve it now, I feel I would be doing in ignorance, and I don't want to do that.
Jim?
Virginia?
I agree with Chuck. I just don't know what the comps are, especially going up 3 ranks.
Stephen?
So there is just a timing issue that I just wanted to bring to your attention. I think you are entitled to conduct under the Brown Act's public employment and performance review exemption, a discussion of the position and the compensation, but a decision on compensation would need to be made in open session and at a regular meeting. And the impact of that decision, I think, unless you want to go through some loops now, but I need to think about that for a moment. Ordinarily, those decisions would be prospective. So you would, in other words, what I'm saying is if you don't act tonight, any decisions you make on a bump in class in pay for a service above class would be announced at your January regular meeting and would take place prospectively, and so would therefore only be in place for a relatively shorter period of time, even than the short period of time that we have right now.
Stephen, could it be made retroactive?
The way to make it retroactive, and I think if you really want some certainty, you might want to take a recess or delay this so that I can do some research to make sure I'm right on this. But I think you would have to adopt a resolution tonight, now, that asserts that his pay is uncertain. It's what they call a resolution of uncertainty. It's kind of a fancy name. And what that means, therefore, is that when you finalize it, you're not making it retroactive because it was uncertain in the first place. But I would request a chance to just check on that, because it's a little bit of an arcane procedure that doesn't happen every day of the week. And so it's not at the tip of my fingers.
Okay. Robert, Rob, I saw your hand first. Rob Solano?
Myself? Oh,
yes.
Thank you, Jim. If I remember, Francine had spoken saying it went from 5 to 10%. We had given Chief Schaefer 5%, and I'd like to make a motion to raise Chief Coyle's salary through classification to 5% as the same as Chief Schaefer's.
I'm not sure. I'm just pointing out, Rob, I'm not sure if 5% increase, or you're proposing a 5% increase over his current battalion chief pay, or pay that's commensurate with Chief Schaefer's pay now?
Well, I'm saying, in fact, this would be a question of Francine then, would be his permanent, well, his acting classification is what, Francine?
So, good evening. Chief Coyle's acting classification right now is acting division chief, and that is paid as special compensation, and his base compensation is his battalion chief position.
So may I continue, Jim, to try to get a clarification? and then I may withdraw my motion here if I get any addition. So Francine, he's considered an acting division chief. Does he retain the division chief salary position?
I'm not sure I understand the question by retain. You mean if when he's appointed to interim chief, he would lose the acting division chief? He would go back to his battalion chief salary, and he would be and the board would determine how much above his battalion chief salary he would be eligible for as interim fire chief.
Okay, Jim.
Yes.
I would like to withdraw my motion and yield to what Chuck has said, that we need to discuss this further, since there's some classification and acting type appointments here that I think we need to discuss in a closed session. So I withdraw my motion.
All right, Chuck.
Yeah, and thank you, Rob. I think we should do it right, and we should do it
right
in a fair manner. And even though we may not be able to make his salary retroactive to January 1st, we can make his compensation recognize that period. For example, if we were going to give 5% for January and February, we could give 10% for February and 0% for January, and it would all work out to be the same. And so we can do what's right no matter what, but I think it just merits some thought and some analysis, and the dais here isn't the place to be doing these calculations.
Right.
All right. I just want to point out, again, in fairness to Chief Coyle, he'll lose the acting division chief pay that he was receiving. He'll revert back to the battalion chief pay at the time he's the acting chief. So I just with your support and concurrence, I would present this to the HR committee in the January meeting, so that we can act with all haste, so that we're fair with Chief Coyle. So we will do that then. Just take that up in the HR committee and develop a proposal that that addresses those issues. So with that, that brings us to your issue, Robert, that the document that you submitted to the board just prior to our meeting. So I give you the floor.
Okay, thank you, Jim. To the board of directors, I am in thinking about experiencing transitions before, and I'm sure many of you probably have as well, from your transition from one job to another. There's always, the document before you is something that I thought about listening to what each of you have proposed in the past, or thought about and talked about in preparing for this new transition for our now appointed fire chief. And that is looking at that transitional period of time, no matter whether it's 2 weeks or 2 years, there is a transitional period of time. And what I'm proposing that a transitional guidance committee or transitional team, it doesn't matter, the label really doesn't matter, but the purpose is what's important. And that is and I spelled it out in the document as best I could, and that is to ensure that there is a smooth transition of authority, institutional knowledge, day-to-day operational knowledge for the incoming fire chief. As you know, he's coming from an organization as big, if not bigger than the one that we have, and he comes with a lot of experience. but there are oftentimes there are those experiences, there are those areas that if provided for him or to him, that he would even excel on the job. I'm proposing that that this team composed of the current deputy chief, which will be our acting chief, our current fire chief, which is Chief Schaefer, and also a consultant, which is a past fire chief of Menlo Park, and that is in the name of Harold Chappell-Holman. For whatever reason, Mr. Chappell-Holman have been around this particular district for a very long time, and that there are relationships that I think the new chief would be able to value in that. I think the transitional team would have the responsibility for ensuring that there is a smooth transition. In that transitional team, I think that the team, the 6 to 8 week period of time, it can go a little bit longer than that. Depends on, I think, really what will be the goals and objectives that will be that the team would outline to make this transition smooth. And I think that if the board sanctioned this, that the team should meet weekly around specific goals and objectives as defined by the transitional consultant. I think that from all that I have talked to and listening to staff members, consultants, and my own background in terms of research, there needs to be this notion of a continuity of operation and as best as possible. And I think within the first 2 sentences in that narrative that I put together, it pretty much states that this effort is within the executive department to ensure that the primary mission of essential functions continue to be performed during a range of emergencies. This executive team will assist the new fire chief in this effort. And the document goes on to talk about looking at what this transition team will do. It will evaluate work, how, it will information or is information being germane, given and exposed to the new chief that's germane to the operation. So that whatever transitional power, policy development, crisis resolution, and other overall operational that really needs to be exposed to the chief happens within a 6 week period of time. And also, if you look at item bullet points number C, these are all things that in looking and kind of trying to figure out and understand what this new chief, if they were provided this information in a more logical way, that will in and itself really advance the learning process and stage for the chief, for the new chief. And if you look at item 1 to 15, it really focuses on someone with the depth of knowledge that Chief Harold have had experienced over the 15 plus years he's been as chief and while he's been in the department. Contrary to beliefs and feelings about the individual as a person, I think looking at the value of knowledge and information the person has to bring to the table that can be very beneficial for the new chief. So I'm proposing the motion that, if there is a motion, one, that the board of directors set up this transitional guidance team with the purpose of ensuring that there is a smooth transition of authority, institutional knowledge, as well as industry knowledge, the day-to-day operational knowledge to the new fire chief. And the second motion on that would be that the board of directors approve creating a team composed of the deputy chief current, the current fire chief, Chief Schaefer, and also the past fire chief of Menlo Park Fire Protection District, former Chief Harold Chappell-Holman. And as I was thinking about it, as close got to the meeting, I know that the board members have expressed, I know two have expressed a real desire to be able to look at how the board, the things that the board have been doing or trying to put together this year to try to make sure there's cohesiveness in moving into the subsequent upcoming years in terms of things. And so that takes some knowledge as well as foresight in trying to make that, making sure that those things happen in the upcoming year, which would be very beneficial for the chief to know, the new chief to know, so that he can get busy about trying to complete the board's goals and objectives. So that's the purpose of, and I feel as though that there is a past, present, and future of people and knowledge that would be very beneficial to the new chief and get them off and running within this 3 to 6 month period of time. So that's it.
So, Robert, you are framing that in the, as a motion?
Yes, two motions. Yes, it was two motions. One, to the board approved it, setting up this transitional guidance committee, and ideally one board member should be a part of that, whether it's you, the current president, or the president next that we elect for next year, to sit on that team. So this transition from board perspective is not lost in or instituted as part of everything else that the new chief need to know. And the second is to incorporate, approve the creation of the people that I talked about, plus the board, current board president or next year's board president on that committee.
All right. Is there a second for the first motion?
Can you just clarify what the first motion is to create this transition team? Is that correct, Robert?
Correct.
Okay. So I'll second that.
All right, let's take these separately. Moved and seconded. Chuck?
I have just a question. Robert just mentioned, or Robert, I'll address you directly. You just mentioned board involvement, but when I look at the document you provided under the second header, it says who. Right. And it doesn't mention anything about the board. So could you clarify who will be on this?
As I mentioned, as we were talking about this earlier, it came to me that it should be a board member should be a part of that transitional team. So it's not on the document. It came later, about almost 15 minutes ago in my head. That should be entities that should be part of that transitional team.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments?
Well,
Stephen?
Director McLaughlin, before you vote on this, I think you should hear one item from me. I don't know if this is the time or if you're going to have more discussion before you vote.
Why don't you go ahead, Stephen?
So your motion has not specifically said who is on the committee, but based on this discussion, I'm assuming that it includes folks other than the board and that it's not going to be a committee of just 2 members of the board. So you should all know that when the board acts to create a committee of that is not solely 2 members of your board, that will be a Brown Act committee whose meetings are subject to all the requirements of the Brown Act, open to the public, and agendized in advance. And so you should just know that as you move forward to creating this committee.
Can point of clarification, Steve, if I may? I think in terms of who, if you, I don't know if you got the document or not, under the who should be part of this committee, in addition to one board member. I mentioned that the team should compose of one, the deputy chief current, was the Chief Coyle, Deputy Chief Coyle, the current fire chief, which is Chief Schaefer, who's going to be retiring, and the consultant, which is the past fire chief of Menlo Park Fire Protection District, which is Chief Cheryl Schapelholm. That was the second motion. The first, but to try to answer the question, that would be the team.
So I feel compelled to make an observation here, and I want to verify this with Chief Schaefer. I've heard a number of times that Dan Coyle referred to as the acting deputy chief, and I believe that's incorrect. I believe Dan Coyle has been the acting ops chief. Is that correct, Chief Schaefer?
That's correct, President McLaughlin. He's currently an acting division chief in charge of operations.
So the current deputy chief is Manny Navarro, Chief Navarro?
Correct.
All right. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Robert.
No. That's important. That's important because I've been saying it myself. So it's important for the board.
Just a quick question then, Robert. Are you saying that the team should be made up of Chief Coyle or Chief Navarro?
Well, when I put this together, my assumption was that Chief Coyle was that's what. If he's operations, position now is for him to move into the acting chief position. So taking the current Chief Coyle, operational Chief Coyle, current Chief Mike Schaefer, past President, past Chief Schapelholm, and one board member composed of the team. So we can avoid the Brown Act as Steve talked about. No,
that does not. That does the opposite of avoiding the Brown Act. If incoming interim Chief Coyle decides that his priority is to create a smooth transition and he wants to take certain actions in accordance with that goal, there is no Brown Act implication. But if this board creates this team or this committee that you're contemplating, as you have just described it, Director Jones, that committee will be subject to the Brown Act. All its meetings must be publicly noticed and agendized in advance and open to the public. It will be a Brown Act committee because of the personnel that you just described.
So which personnel, all of the personnel will create this Brown Act?
So a committee made up of a minority of the board, and only a minority of the board, like 2 board members, can be an ad hoc committee that is not subject to the Brown Act if it meets certain requirements. But that rule only applies when the only members of the board, of the committee, are board members, because your proposal includes members of the committee that are not board members. It will be subject to the Brown Act, period, full stop.
Can I ask a quick question? I'm sorry, I don't have the raise hand feature. It's Michelle. Steve, does that, and that is even if it's just one board member?
Well, a committee of one board member. So
he's suggesting to create a transition guidance committee with one board member participating.
That will be a Brown Act committee because it is not composed of solely a minority of the board members, but includes other non-board members.
Thank you.
So your proposal, if I might, one way to affect your goal, Director Jones, is not to create a committee, but to suggest that incoming interim Chief Coyle take certain actions that are consistent with this guidance, and he may wish to do certain things to affect a smooth transition, but he's doing it in his capacity as the interim chief, not because the board has acted to create a committee. And that's an important distinction. So just you can create a committee if you want, but you will be creating the Brown Act committee.
Jim, just a quick question of Steve. Would that be considered a standing committee then? I mean, what kind of committee would it be technically, an ad hoc versus standing, or neither?
Technically neither, but if you have to choose between one and the other, it would be a standing committee.
Okay.
So if,
no, Robert, go ahead. Then I see Rob Solano has been waiting patiently, but why don't you go ahead and make your point?
So if a board member is not on, whether you call it a committee or a transitional team, if calling it a committee versus team, if that makes a difference, and two, whether a board member sits on the committee makes a difference too, whether it would be subject to the Brown Act.
What makes the difference is that there are people in addition to board members. The only way to have it not be subject to the Brown Act would be if it is only 2 members of the board. And I don't believe, based on this conversation, that whether you call it a team or a committee makes a difference.
So if 2 board members sit on this team, committee, whatever we're going to call it, then it's not subject to the Brown Act.
If 2 members and only 2 members serve with no one else, no non-board members, and this is a committee that is formed for the purpose of a limited purpose for a limited duration, which it sounds like it is because you're suggesting just a 6 to 8 week transitional committee, then it could be considered an ad hoc committee that is not subject to the Brown Act. But that ad hoc committee rule is a special rule that only applies to committees made up exclusively of a minority of the board.
However, it should be noted that the ad hoc committee can invite guests to the committee that are staff, but they just can't be committee members.
Is that a question or a statement, Michelle?
I'm just saying that an ad hoc committee wouldn't be subject to the Brown Act as long as it consists of 2 board members and nobody else. But that committee can invite employees to a meeting to exchange information or discuss an item. Is that correct, Steve?
Yes, it's the short answer. I mean,
right. Thank you for that.
The ad hoc committee will ordinarily not necessarily be meeting in public, but it can choose to do what it wants to do. The Brown Act doesn't care about ad hoc committees in the same way it cares about other committees.
Yeah, Rob, you've been very patient.
Thank you, Jim. Robert, I think you've done a great job here in identifying specific areas that should be addressed by not only our new chief, but the organization itself. You know, and I refer to item 10 of our agenda, which is what we're going to go over here later on. And you've got here, meet with various city administrators, financial directors, and resource directors, meet with fire department commands. So we're looking at from 1 to 15 are excellent areas that whoever we pick to do our management review and audit would be part of that project or that reporting proposal. So you've identified a lot of these areas that definitely need to be addressed. And that's why we did approve the management audit. I have to say, you know, I have confidence in the appointment of this new chief that we have just voted on. He's got the breadth of experience, education, and training. He comes from a fire agency twice the size of ours. He has to his disposal the entire senior staff of our organization, to include specialty areas like we have an equipment committee, we have a safety committee. So our new chief will have that. And then, you know, let's not forget about all these proposals that we still have out that haven't been completed yet. The compensation one, the one involving emergency preparedness, and of course the management audit and review for us. So I think, you know, Robert, you've hit all these great points, 1 through 15, and the new chief, I'm sure he has the ability, because he's been a chief for quite a long time, in order to use the resources that are available without us creating this type of committee. So thank you, Jim.
Right, Robert, at this point, I want to back up a little bit. We have a motion and a second. And Robert, I don't know if you want to amend your motion in light of the comments that you've heard.
Well, in terms of just the in hearing and understanding Steve is that any committee that's get formulated with board members really will have to adhere to the Brown Act. And so I get that. What I don't understand is, and I'm hearing from maybe an undertone to this, is that the new chief, it doesn't seem like, sound like that anything that it will help him or her, in this case him, to transition into this job is all would have to come through the reports that is our committee reports that is being generated right now. And to me, any executive position, even from the president on down, there's always a transitional team there to help in discovering on an acceleration basis their understanding of what's involved with concurrent a position that they will take. And so, you know, only thing I'm saying is that, you know, whatever the legal structure is for this particular team, whether it is composed of just board members or if it's non-board members, and if this is something that going into chief core has the ability to be able to kind of pull together and direct, that's even better. But I think overall, looking at all these things, and that's why I listed some. These are just some of the areas that need to be looked at, need to be addressed. In terms of meeting with the city council members, you can set up a appointment, but their relationships that have been built over time, and ideally for that particular individual to have the experience and understanding from other folks who have been in that meeting with these folks at different cities, to be able to kind of share that particular information and knowledge so that they can not step into the landmine or pitfalls that could possibly be out there for them. And so in trying to achieve that particular objective, if the current going into acting chief have that knowledge and ability, skills and experience, so be it. Let that happen. But I'm not so sure that is there. So why not take experience from folks who have done it for a limited period of time to make that happen? Because we can't wait for a report to come in down the road to give this person that information. They need to hit the ground running at that point. So, at this point, the motion, the first one was that the board set up this committee, but it sounded like, listen to Steve, that's not a possibility. That should not be advised to do that, because now it's a committee and it's subject to the Brown Act, which is unfortunate. I think there's this transitional piece needs to be there. A group body needs to be there. So, that's my motion. If the illegality, if it's not legal, then I'm just saying, and you agree with the process and the method, let's figure out a way to fix it. But if there's no will there, I'm okay with that too. The second motion was I named several people to be a part of that this should be directed to. So if there's no will for that either, then just vote it down. So.
All right. So you want to let it stand?
Let it only to the point of where getting advice from the legal counsel to make it work. And he proposed one option, if I heard it correctly, the only way to make it work is that it become either an ad hoc committee of the board with other entities being invited, consultative work to come in to help in the conversation and developing a strategy for that. That seemed like that's the only thing I heard, the way it would work. So yeah, I would modify it to that extent.
Okay, I think Michelle, do you need clarification, or could you repeat?
The best I can understand is the first motion is to create a transition guidance ad hoc committee consisting of 2 members of the board. Is that correct?
Correct. Correct.
All right. Why don't we take these separately? So it's an amended motion, as I understand it. So Virginia, do you want to second the amended motion?
So Michelle, could you please, I'm sorry, read the amended motion one more time?
Yeah, can you give me just one moment, because
sure,
I need to do some updating and I don't want to get confused.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, so the amendment is to create an ad hoc transition guidance committee consisting of 2 board members.
Okay. And then that would be based off of what you wrote about, Robert, in your document to the board?
Correct.
Okay, then I will second that amended motion.
All right, is there any further discussion on the motion? All right, Michelle, would you call the vote, please?
Director Bernstein?
Nay.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Corelli?
Aye.
Director Solano?
No.
Director McLaughlin?
No. So the second motion, if you could read that, Michelle.
Okay, yes, please give me one more moment. There's a lot happening here, if you don't mind. Okay, so the second motion was to name who would be part of the committee, I believe, and that was the original motion was to name a member, a board member, a division chief, Chief Coyle, Chief Schaefer, and Harold Schapelhoman.
That's almost like a moot point at this point, right?
You're welcome to withdraw your motion. Director Jones?
No, I want to vote on it.
Okay.
Is there a
so what's the motion then?
To name the members of the committee, who would be Dan Coyle, Mike Schaefer, and Harold Schapelhoman. Is that correct? Do I have that right, Director Jones?
Correct.
And then that would also have to include 2 members of the board for this to be a legitimate ad hoc committee, right?
The original motion was for 1 member of the board. So unless you want to amend this motion, it was Coyle, Schaefer, Schapelhoman, and 1 board member.
And the council said that that wouldn't work. So I would then make a motion that that this transit the transitional the people that it's almost a moot point. So let me just, without the committee, these individuals have no, it's like a ship without a rudder. far as I'm concerned. So I will draw that motion.
All right. Very good. You know, we're still on item 6, and Chief Coyle, I meant to, you know, give you the floor earlier. I don't know if you have any words you'd like to share with the board.
Sure, President McLaughlin and board members, thank you very much for your trust and faith that you've placed in me. I've had the honor to work with Chief Schaefer for close to 20 years, and I've watched the way he conducts himself and the way he makes decisions and the way he communicates with people very closely. And he's been a huge mentor in my life. I've also had the opportunity today to meet with Chief Lorenzen, and that was very beneficial and eye-opening, and I really enjoyed that time today. I'm confident we will have continuity in leadership, management, and command for the fire district. And I'm really looking forward to a very bright future under Chief Lorenzen's command, hopefully in early February. And I would like to also take this opportunity to repeat my statement that the fire board took this process very seriously, and your diligent work and your efforts really did render an excellent decision. And I can't even count the number of people who have reached out once they found out that we were lucky enough to get Chief Lorenzen to come over to Menlo Park Fire. And so I just want to thank you all for all the work that you've done to make that happen. And I look forward to working with you all over the next few months and into the future.
All right, thank you, Chief. All right, on to item 7, approve a resolution.
Director McLaughlin.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm very sorry, but in the background, Michelle has been emailing me correctly. I think it would be helpful just to correct the record for number 5, the appointment of Mark Lorenzen as the fire chief. In the oral statement that you made, based on information provided by me, so the mistake is mine, you mentioned that the term of the agreement would be 5 years. In fact, the agreement that the board authorized earlier and that has been shared with Director Lorenzen and the actual written document is for a 3-year period. I don't think there's a need for voting all over again because it's the understanding of the board based on direction from a number of prior meetings. But I just wanted to correct the oral record that the agreement is for a 3-year period, not a 5-year period.
Thank you.
And that's my mistake. So apologies for that.
Okay. And Michelle, thank you for your diligence in catching that. All right, item 7, approve a resolution adopting volume 1 of the San Mateo County Multi-Jurisdictional Local Hazard Mitigation Plan for 2021 in the Fire District Annex of volume 2. If you'll remember, this came to us last month. Several members expressed the desire to review the document before voting on it. Chief Schaefer distributed that document, and it's back before us this evening. Before I get to Chief Schaefer, I see Rob Solano's hand.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, I'd like to move to approve, but I would like to add some type of either quarterly or semi-annual review to make sure that we're going in the right direction relative to this. Because I know we had talked about the water rights issue and the infrastructure in certain parts of our fire district, and we would like those items addressed. And I think there needs to be some type of progress review on this, because what Chief Schaefer had told us before, that it was a breathing, living document. So I have no problem approving it, but I want something in there that says that, whatever our board feels is an appropriate review quarterly or semi-annually, that we make sure that we're on target for this. So thank you, Jim.
All right. Chief Schaefer, do you want to introduce the item, the staff report?
Absolutely. Thank you, President McLaughlin. As stated by you in our previous meeting, this was discussed And Dan Belleville from San Mateo County was here answering questions of the board. And all members of the board have received a copy of this. And it is before you once again to get your approval from the board for adopting and approving the resolution of Volume 1 and Volume 2. If there's questions, we do have Andres Acevedo on the line. However, I believe that the main focus was to have all the board members read it. And as I said earlier, it is a living document. Once adopted, it can be added to. And I think unless there's any questions, I would hope the board would be able to approve this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Chuck?
I have looked at the document. It's many hundreds of pages long. And let me say, I think I and some of the people involved in the volunteer organizations were hoping to have a document, which this is not, but we're hoping to have a document that would be something that would be a plan for how people would respond to a disaster of some sort. And this is really a compliance document. It's one of those big volumes that's going to sit on a shelf and never be opened or cracked or used for any purpose, but it meets a requirement, and I'm going to vote for it because we meet the requirement, even though the county has already approved it, the state has already approved it, and nobody cares whether we approve it or not, because it really isn't an actionable kind of document. I'm only saying this because I know county people worked very hard on this. I know that it was the first time that lots of agencies got together to deal with it. All of that's kind of a positive thing, but at a very high and distant level. I just would hope that at some point, either we as a district or we as a county could actually talk about what would we do in the event of an impending tsunami? What would we do in the event of a major conflagration and so forth? How would we respond? And this is not it, and it's never going to be it. That's a different kind of thing altogether. So I just want to reflect a disappointment that we're not addressing it at the level of saving people, but it is a necessary compliance document, and I think we should vote to pass it.
Great, thank you for that. Any other comments? All right, Rob, did you want to make a motion to accept it with, you know, the review requirement, or do you want to leave that up to the E-Prep committee?
Yeah, I'd like to leave the reporting requirement to whoever either the current or the newly appointed E-Prep committee in January, but just to make sure that we have some type of review reporting requirement on this, because definitely because of the water infrastructure problem that we have in the southern part of our district. And it appears that it can be addressed here with the DHS and FEMA requirements. So,
all right. So you want to make a motion to accept it?
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution adopting Volume 1 of the San Mateo County Multi-Jurisdictional Local Hazard Migration Plan 2021 and the Fire District Annex of Volume 2.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Is there any public comment?
Anybody has any public comment, please raise your hand now or click *9 on your phone. I see none.
All right, thank you. Please call the vote.
Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Jones? I'll come back to Director Jones. Director Crawley?
Aye.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director McLaughlin?
Aye.
And Director Jones?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Item 8, adopt a resolution approving salary and benefit changes for management and confidential unrepresented employees. Chief?
Thank you, President McLaughlin and members of the board. The current management and confidential unrepresented personnel compensation plan is set to expire as of January 1st, 2022. And I would request that the board adopt a resolution approving the salary and benefit changes for the management and confidential unrepresented personnel.
Thank you, Robert, or Rob Jones. I'm sorry, Rob Solano.
Yeah. Chief, do we have the compensation study completed?
I'm sorry, Director. Are you asking about the class and comp?
Yes.
To my knowledge, that has not been finalized. I will ask Francine Hunt to confirm that. I don't believe I've seen a final copy of that.
Yeah, that's correct, Director Solano. It has not been finalized. We haven't received any additional information other than the information that Eddie shared. We don't have any total comp data for salary. We're working on the job class specs.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the chief or Francine? All right, is there a motion to adopt?
I'll move to adopt a resolution approving salary and benefit changes for management and confidential unrepresented personnel.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Chuck?
Yeah, I have a comment about it. This is a work in progress, and I'm seconding it with that understanding. This is not a contract. This is a compensation plan. And I'm told that we can adjust it at any time throughout the year. And I hope once we get the information from our class and comp study that we will be able to make appropriate changes after referral to committee and discussion and so forth. It could take 3 to 6 months to make changes, but I believe that it does need more changes than what we are doing here, but it needs changes that are based on information that we don't yet have.
All right, Rob Solano.
Thank you, Jim. I'm going to echo what Chuck has said. You know, I would hate to not approve this and put those employees in jeopardy. And then secondly, you know, without the study completed, I know that we can go back and adjust accordingly. So I'm going to vote for this also. Thank you.
Stephen Miller, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you, President McLaughlin. I just would like to confirm that the motion that you just adopted, that you just made, will continue in effect, if adopted, all terms and conditions of the plan that are not amended, so that the current plan will not expire, but will continue on into 2022, except as amended in your motion. And if I could just get an oral confirmation of that, that would be great.
That's my understanding of its impact. Are you suggesting that might require a separate action?
No. Yeah, I just think it could. I just wanted to underscore that and get it crystal clear. Your resolution includes that statement as a whereas, and I just wanted to make sure that that's your understanding of what you're resolving to vote on, and that's why I just make this comment. But if that's understanding in place, you don't need any separate action.
All right, thank you. Rob Solano.
I'm sorry, I forgot to lower my hand, Jim. Thank you.
All right. Well, it's been moved and seconded, so if there's nothing further. Michelle?
Yes, if there's any member of the public that would like to provide a public comment, please raise your hand or click *9 on your phone. I see none. I will start the roll call. Director Bernstein.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Crawley.
Aye.
Director Solano.
Aye.
Director McLaughlin.
Aye. All right, moving along. Adopt a resolution approving salary and benefit changes for unrepresented chief officers. Chief.
Thank you, President McLaughlin, members of the board. The chief officer's unrepresented personnel compensation plan, it too will be expiring in January 1st of 2022. And I recommend that we adopt the resolution approving the salary and benefit changes for unrepresented chief officers. Thank you very much.
Right, any questions for the chief or Francine? Stephen, I'd imagine your comments regarding the previous item would apply to this item as well.
Thank you. That's great observation. Exactly right.
All right, Chuck.
And I'd like to say my comments about this being a work in progress, subject to things we'll learn from the class and comp study, is also pertains to this compensation plan.
All right. Is there a motion to adopt?
I'll move to adopt.
I'll second.
All right. There's no further comment. Michelle, is there any public comment?
If there are any public comments, please raise your hand now or click *9 on your phone. I see none. I'll move forward with the roll call. Director Bernstein.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Corrali.
Aye.
Director Solano.
Aye.
Director McLaughlin.
Aye. All right. Item 10, approve a resolution authorizing the fire chief to execute an agreement to conduct a comprehensive management audit. Regarding this item, I want to acknowledge the efforts of Robert Jones and Chuck Bernstein. Really last minute, I asked them to join staff in reviewing the RFP proposals that came in. They did it with very short turnaround time. I know there was a great deal of effort. There's 5 separate responses and required a substantial, commitment of time and effort to get that done. So again, I want to thank both Robert Jones and Chuck Bernstein for stepping up and getting that done. So with that, Chief, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, President McLaughlin and members of the board. RFP was sent to 9 consultants who specialize in conducting management audits. We received 5 responses. The district reviewed those responses and 2 board members reviewed those responses. And I would recommend that you allow me to execute an agreement to conduct the comprehensive management audit. And that would be based on the firm of the choice of the board this evening.
All right. Chuck or Robert, I don't know if you want to discuss your findings after your review.
Go for it, Chuck.
Well, as the chief indicated, there were 5 proposals, and I'll just talk about the process for a moment. We met and narrowed it down to 2. And I have to acknowledge the efforts of Manny Navarro in getting both of those proposers to attend the meeting the very next day, in which we had a chance to interview them, ask questions about the proposals and so forth. And it was quite amazing that he was able to get those things set up so quickly. But in the end, as I understand, we all agreed on a single proposer, and that was AP Triton. On page 1 of the staff report here, page 1 of 3, I'm having trouble reading the actual page number there, but it's page 689, it seems to say, although I don't think I have 600 pages here. But anyway, it's the second one down, AP Triton. And they were not the most expensive, but they were more expensive than 3 out of the 5. And I think they impressed us as somebody that had the right mix of skills. Robert Jones pointed out that they included not just fire experts, but people who with a broad experience as required for our district. In other words, these were city manager type people who had familiarity with HR and finance and facilities and other functions that we need to have. So that's our recommendation. And just one last point, the first step actually was true in both of the top proposals. The first step in both of these was to kind of meet with the board and narrow the focus of the proposal. So it's the intent of the one we're recommending here, AP Triton, to meet with the board, to hear from the board members about what we're looking for. And so approving this doesn't, set them off running in every which direction. In fact, they will come to us to seek more guidance on exactly what we're looking for and what we're trying to accomplish. Robert, would you like to add anything? Or?
I think you did a good job in kind of giving a synopsis of our conclusion that we made. I think bang for the buck. I think the people, AP Triton, was there clearer to me understanding of the purpose of their particular consultant work. To me, they articulated that far above the other person group that we saw. So
I see Chief Navarro has joined us. I don't know if you have anything you want to share with us, Chief.
Thank you, President McLaughlin, Board Directors, your interim Deputy Chief for the Menlo Park Fire Protection District. I am very pleased to recommend from staff point of view, AP Triton. And we had a really good discussion with our ad hoc committee, Directors Bernstein and Jones. And initially, I think Director Bernstein specifically was looking at Fitch first and Triton second. Our committee that reviewed this internally looked at both of those as being very reputable groups, and we had them both at the highest rating. We had AP Triton first. But after our interviews and our discussion, because we convened after the interviews, we were in consensus. Your ad hoc committee and the staff were both recommended AP Triton. And I think what notably is important is Triton put together a team for a management audit that included a number of diverse individuals in terms of background. Fitch had a great team, but very, very solid fire service background. But the other teams got HR people, ex-city managers, et cetera. I think we're going to get a better quality altogether, and we came to consensus on it. I feel pretty confident. I know a lot of people on both sides. I feel pretty good about what's going on. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief. All right, any further comments, or is there a motion to adopt the working group's recommendation? Rob?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the AP Triton in the recommendation of the ad hoc committee.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion or comments? Michelle, is there any public comment on this item?
If there are any public comments, please raise your hand or click *9 on your telephone. Seeing none.
All right, please call the vote.
Shall do. Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Crawley?
Aye.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director McLaughlin.
Aye. All right, very good. Moving on to item 11, approve a resolution temporarily eliminating the annual leave cap for chief officers and allow a one-time cash out of all hours in excess of 720 hours. Chief?
Thank you, President and Board of Directors. This is something that has been worked on by Francine, our HR manager, and I will turn that over to her. Francine?
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Board of Directors, President McLaughlin. So I would like to ask that the Board of Directors approve a resolution to temporarily eliminate the annual leave cap for chief officers and allow a mandatory one-time cash out for all hours in excess of 720 hours as of December 30th, 2021. And to give you some background on this item, last year in November of 2020, the Board of Directors approved to temporarily lift the annual leave cap for all non-shift chief officers, AFSCME, management, and unrepresented employees. And this was allowed for employees to have this basically to over accrue until April 30 of 2021. The board approved this due to COVID. Employees couldn't take time off or travel due to travel restrictions. So the board allowed this temporary lift of the annual leave cap. However, the staff report excluded chief officers because from what I understand, it was believed that they, the chief officers aligned with IAFF and that they received automatic cash outs each year, but they do not. So we have a couple of employees who are, who've been told that they could over accrue. However, their compensation plan does not support an over accrual. So we're asking if the board can allow a mandatory one-time cash out. This does align with the IRS doctrine for constructive receipt because it does not allow individual choice. If it's mandated, similar to IAFF, it allows employees to avoid constructive receipt. So I'm available if anyone has any questions.
Yeah.
Any questions, Virginia?
Oh, no, I was just going to make a motion to approve this resolution temporarily eliminating the annual leave cap for chief officers and now and allow a one-time cash out of all hours in excess of 720 hours. And I want to thank Francine for all the work she's done on this. It's very informative and kind of an unintended consequence of the pandemic.
Thank you.
Any second? Chuck?
Did you get the second? I'm sorry.
Okay, we do now. Thank you.
Did I second it or did somebody else?
No, I believe you.
Okay, I'm happy to second it, but I want to make a statement about it.
All right.
I'm sorry, I had my hand up, but I'm happy to second it. This will be a theme that I'll repeat several times tonight, but I want to say this positively because I believe it is a positive change, and I believe it is one of the first steps we're taking to kind of change the culture of the district. And this is before us tonight because the person who set up this whole thing in motion in the first place, and this was not Francine Hunt, she's the one who found the problem, and that's part of the cultural change that I am applauding. But the person who set this up basically made a decision about something being necessary or unnecessary without any kind of devil's advocacy, without checking it out, without researching it. And it represents kind of an arrogance that is something I hope to change in the district in the future. People were told something that was not true, and they counted on that professional information, which turned out to be unprofessional. And we are now fixing a problem that was created in the past. And maybe this was created by one person, but the fact is nobody second guessed it, nobody checked it, nobody said, let me take a look. And that's also part of kind of a very hierarchical organization where the top people are always right and nobody ever questions them. So the fact that Francine came here, questioned what was going on, researched it, and then found a solution for it, I think is part of the cultural change that I am applauding. And I just want to make note of it. And I will repeat this theme several times tonight.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Michelle, any public comment?
If there are any public comments, please raise your hand or click *9 on, or press *9 on your phone. I see none.
Okay, please call the vote.
Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Crawley?
Aye.
Director Solano? I'll come back to Director Solano. Director McLaughlin?
Aye.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Item 12, relative to adopting a resolution approving the revised salaries tables in the IAFF MOU. Chief?
Thank you, President McLaughlin, members of the board. This is yet another item that has been worked on by our HR manager, Francine Hunt, and I will turn it over to Francine.
Hello again. So this item that I'm bringing before the board is to adopt a resolution approving a revised salary schedule that's part of the IAFF MOU dated June 24th, 2018 to June 23rd, 2023. There were several errors in the salary table. And it's very important to ensure that our salary tables that are posted and publicly available for compensation that is pensionable. So I have attached a modified salary table to correct all of the errors. And I'm just asking that the salary table doesn't approve any new benefit. It actually supports the language that's written in the MOU. There was just errors when someone prepared the table.
So Francine, could you elaborate a bit on the errors? Was it just a programming error? Was somebody off on their arithmetic, or were numbers transposed? Or
yeah, so what happened, and it kind of is a domino effect. In January 2022, the board, through the MOU adoption, approved to add step 5 to the engineer classification. And the step 5 for the engineer is 5% below the entry-level step for the fire captain. On the salary tables, the step 5 was not added, and then that made no change to the fire captain. So steps 1 through 3 for fire captain remained the same. So because that was erroneously not put into the salary table, all of the captain's salaries were wrong. And all of the additional pay percentage of salary were also wrong. So the EMT and the paramedic were wrong. And that just kind of flew through chart. In addition, there was some wrong effective dates that didn't support for when the deputy fire marshal had an additional step. There was an additional table that was added that basically was kind of a duplicate table, but had some wrong information. So I removed it. Yeah, so I made sure that the table supported the language in the MOU, and so that it's consistent with the authority that was given.
So with these corrections, will anyone's paycheck be altered?
No, everyone's pay was established by the language in the MOU, but I think it's important to update this because this attachment is something that PERS will check when they're checking on salaries. It's something that I check, and that's how I found it when I verify, PAFs that I'm signing personal action forms, but it doesn't impact anyone's salary. Everyone was paid the correct way. This is just cleaning up an attachment that was wrong.
I just want to echo Chuck's earlier observation about your diligence, and thank you so much for correcting, something that it would be easily just taken for granted. So thank you for that. Any questions or comments, Chuck?
Yeah, thank you for and I'm not going to belabor the point, but this will become an issue on another item on tonight's agenda in terms of having some more horsepower in the financial area.
All right, if there's nothing further, Michelle, any public comment?
Are there any public comments? Please raise your hand or click *9 on your phone. I see none.
Yeah, please call the vote.
Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Crawley?
Aye.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director McLaughlin?
Aye.
All
right.
I'm so sorry, but I did not know who first and seconded that item.
I believe Virginia made the motion and Chuck seconded.
That was on the previous one for the leave cash out. This is for the salary table repair.
I'm not sure we had a motion in a second.
We didn't have a motion in a second. If we could try that one more time, please.
I'll move to adopt a resolution approving the revised salary tables in the International Association of the Firefighters IAFF Memorandum of Understanding.
I'll second it.
Thank you. I'm going to do the vote just one more time, if you don't mind.
Sure,
to clarify, please. Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Crawley?
Aye.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director McLaughlin?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, item 13, adopt a resolution approving the 2022 Flexible Benefit Plan Restatement and the 2019 Flexible Benefit Plan Amendment to comply with the IRS rules for Code Section 125 plans. Chief?
Thank you, President McLaughlin and members of the board. This too has been a project for Francine, our HR manager, and I will feel most comfortable letting her explain this one to you. All right. Francine.
Thank you. So hello, Board of Directors again. So this item, there's two parts, and I'll explain each part so it's kind of clear what we're requesting. So I'm asking the board to adopt a resolution approving the 2022 Flex Benefit Plan Restatement, as well as the 2019 Flexible Benefit Plan Amendment to comply with the IRS rules for Code Section 125 plans. So I'll start with the 2019 Flexible Benefit Plan Amendment. So in 2019, the board, from what I understand, approved an amendment to their flexible benefit plan. However, they made a subsequent change to the plan and didn't bring the plan before the board to adopt that amendment. And the amendment was due to COVID. COVID allowed for what's called, they call it the COVID-related Taxpayer Certainty and Disaster Tax Relief of 2020. And what this allowed is it allowed employees that were enrolled in a flexible spending, health, and dependent care account to make a mid-year election because maybe they weren't able to use their medical funds because medical services weren't being provided. The kids were in dependent care because they were home. So it allowed, and the district provided this benefit to employees. So they extended this benefit. So the first amendment for the 2019 is just kind of restating that we provided this benefit to employees. The benefit is now expired, the mid-year election, but we did provide it. And then the 2022 restatement of our plan is actually to comply with all of the changes the board has made to the MOUs to comply with Section 125 plans. And so we've changed and updated that language to be consistent with the benefits that we provide. So those are the two changes that I'm asking the board to approve for the flexible benefit plan restatement, and then the second amendment. Questions, if you have questions regarding either of those.
Any questions for Francine on this item? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the interim financial management consultant. Oh no, sorry. I'm sorry.
Item 13.
Thank you. jumped ahead here. I move that we adopt a resolution approving the 2022 flexible benefit plan reinstatement and the 2019 flexible benefit plan amendment to comply with the IRS rule for code section 125 plans.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Chuck?
I'm going to play my tired record for the third time here. This is something, again, I think arrogance led the staff to make changes which were not checked out, although I believe a consultant was involved in this, but for whatever reason, we did not get a plan that met IRS regulations, conformed with their regulations. And we've had a very difficult time sort of bringing things, making things right. We've had to make different arrangements with staff. There's one group of staff that has not been made whole and may never be made whole as a result of this. Again, this just shouldn't happen in a $60 million organization. And I just want to make note that we need more horsepower, and we need people who are willing to stand up and say, let me take a look at it myself, or I'm not sure I agree with you. And sometimes in a paramilitary organization, like the fire district, that kind of behavior is not tolerated. And that's one of the changes that I'd like to see. I've argued for 5 years for us to have some sort of a financial analyst involved, and we still don't have any financial analysis function in the district. And that's something I hope the board will, after these problems surfaced, will come around to see how important financial analysis is. It is separate from the accounting function.
Great, thank you for that. Any further comments? So just to confirm, Robert made the motion and Virginia seconded.
Correct.
Very good.
Director Jones made the motion and Crawley seconded, yes.
Yes, all right, thank you. Any public comment, Michelle?
Anybody has any public comment, please raise your hand or press *9 on your phone. I see none. I'll continue with the roll call. Director Bernstein.
Aye.
Director Jones. Director Jones. I'll come back to Director Jones. Director Crawley.
Aye.
Director Solano.
Aye.
Director McLaughlin.
Aye.
And Director Jones.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, very good. That brings us to item 14, discussion of an interim financial management consultant due to the administrative service manager vacancy. Chief.
Thank you, President McLaughlin and members of the board. The Finance Committee meeting back in December, the committee discussed hiring a consultant equivalent to our current open administrative services manager position, which is currently being filled in an acting position by Long Lam. And it was requested that we put together a staff report, which is in your packet. And I believe that the board wanted to have some discussion on this item based on this report. And Long Lam is on the meeting. And if you have any questions for him or myself, we're happy to answer those.
All right, any questions or discussion, Chuck?
Yes, this was a discussion that took place in the Finance Committee meeting. And rather than wait to make my Finance Committee meeting report at the end of this meeting, I'd like to kind of make it here. And I'd like to just point out 2 issues in the staff report. Well, first of all, my recommendation, but it certainly, I'm going to let Virginia Crawley speak for herself here. I believe we need some more horsepower, and this is in no way a slam against Long Lam. I think he works very hard, and I think his work is very accurate from what I've seen. But he is the only person doing this kind of work, and I think we need more horsepower. We need somebody who can check on things. I mean, I have an MBA. I worked as a consultant for 10 years, a business consultant. I make mistakes all the time. And if I didn't give this to other people to look at and say, please check, or please put these numbers into Excel and make sure that they all, you know, we've increased compensation by 5% every year, or whatever it is, this is not something you can do alone in the day, or heaven help that you're not doing it at 11 o'clock at night before something happening the next day. You need backup. You need somebody who can check this and verify it, whether they're doing a little tape on it or they're doing an Excel or whatever. This is hard work, and mistakes happen all the time. So I just think we need to have, and I'm not trying to dictate it. I'm not trying to get anybody that's going to report to the board at this point. I would like the chief, the interim chief, to make sure that the district has a consultant who can confer with Long and other staff as a backup here. And we've worked with a couple of firms before. Those people have been knowledgeable and helpful. Again, I'm not pushing for a firm or a person. It could be a retired person for an annuitant or something of that sort. But I think we're missing the administrative services manager. And at one point, that position was, in theory, almost maybe the second or third most powerful position in the whole fire district. And it's referred to here in the discussion in the staff report. If you look in the fourth line of discussion, it's called a mid-management staff position. Well, goodness, to have the entire finance area reporting, the entire administrative area reporting to a mid-level manager, that just doesn't seem right. I think it's going to take time to hire a new person. I think this is one of the first things that Chief Lorenzen is going to need to do. But in the meantime, we need to have someone who could be that backup, who could go and you know, staff could confer with, who could just review reports before the chief publishes them and things like that. And we've seen just too many mistakes. We can't afford to have that continue in the future. So I'm actually going to make a motion that the board direct the interim chief to make available a financial expert as a resource.
I'll second that.
Any further comments, or Robert?
It appears to me that I'm not sure why we need a consultant to come in versus just taking an initiative to go out and hire somebody. I don't think it's going to take, maybe it may take, you know, another year to do so, but I think we have excellent HR person now who can provide that process to us as a board, put it together rather quickly. It depends on what the fruit of the labor will be in terms of the return once it get out there. But I'm, going out paying for a consultant to be around for the next 6 weeks or so, or even another month. You know, I don't scrutinize it as much as some of my colleagues, but you know, maybe there are some horrendous reports of things that are coming through. But I think Lamb has been done a good job in his position right at this point. Granted that there needs to be backups to the backups, but I think rather than going through this exercise of looking for a consultant, that we take this time to go out and try to find someone to fill the position that has been vacant for a couple of months.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Virginia?
Yeah, so I had an issue with this, not because I don't agree with Chuck that, you know, there have been problems in the financial department that in that area, but I also think that given the fact that we've just hired a new chief, yeah, I agree with Robert. I don't think that a month out, 5 to 6 weeks, 5 weeks or so, 6 weeks, is going to make a huge difference. think that Chief Lorenzen should be in a position to kind of go through and see everything and make some adjustments in his executive staff and his command staff. And, you know, that really was one of my main concerns from the finance committee meeting that we had is, you know, just, I don't want to appear like we're going to be micromanaging the new chief and hiring someone and, you know, all of this. I think that he needs to be able to start fresh, like I said earlier, and put together his administrative team.
Chuck, you know, we just approved a, you know, this management audit. Is there going to be some redundancy between that and what you're proposing?
No, because the management audit is going to be dealing with processes and it's in no way any kind of financial audit at all. So I don't think there's redundancy there, but in any case, the proposals that we looked at talked about, even the top two, are 4 to 6 month process. So by the time this report is done, we're going to have completed our entire budget for the new year. I think that this would be a favor to the chief. And you know what? If the chief doesn't like this consultant, they can get another consultant. But the chief comes in the first week of February. We wouldn't have a person in place until March or April. And by then the budget process is all done. He's already got a budget. He's got nobody to ask to do analysis. And while, don't misunderstand me, I think our manager of HR has done a terrific job uncovering problems and correcting problems. But this is too big a job. She can't add a second job. She's got her hands full already. We need somebody available who can do, you know, run the meter when there's a job to be done, but not run the meter when there's not a job to be done, who can do analyses for budget stuff, who could answer questions of the chief. If the chief doesn't think it's good advice, he can get help elsewhere. I just want to direct the chief to get somebody in place who could check long stuff, or Long could ask a question, or have somebody to bounce ideas off of. Where can we get this information? Because literally this fiscal year will be over before the new chief can put his handprint on the year. We'll have a new budget for the subsequent year already by this time.
So am I correct in presuming that the former admin services manager was performing those functions, you know, reviewing the work, the final level of approval before things were submitted to the Secretary of State's office, or, you know, our annual report? Was the admin services manager, and I don't know if you know, or you know, Chief Schaefer or Long Lamb, was that admin services manager charged with that function?
So
reviewing and approval.
Good morning, good evening, directors and President McLaughlin. So I can answer that question. So usually I take care of all the audits and completing the financials. Once it's completed, I would provide to the admin service managers to review, yes.
So is that function just not being performed now with the departure of that admin services manager?
So in terms of our financials and our annual comprehensive financial reports, those are being handled by myself. I've been working with the auditors for the past few months, and we're finalizing the reports, and there's no issues at all.
But I guess where I'm trying to get is there indeed a gap? Did the departure of the admin services manager create a gap in the process? You know, that was someone there reviewing, you know, that final level of review, that final level of authority, approval of authority?
Yes.
Is that so that we do in fact have a gap?
Yes. At the moment, yes. So all of the financials documents are being reviewed by me, by myself. Then the auditors would audit them. Yes.
Okay. So Chuck, are you proposing that we hire someone that just performs those functions that was being performed by the admin services manager? Again, that final level of approval?
No, I'm only proposing that we develop a contract, open-ended, maybe with some cap or something, but an open-ended contract with a financial services group that could be a resource. I'm not talking about somebody who necessarily has regular office hours or does a job description, just somebody who is available and hopefully would be used. And let me add one more thing. We wouldn't have corrected these three things tonight. And we know that there's other problems that we've had to deal with also. If the auditor did this kind of thing, we wouldn't have had to be dealing with this. But in fact, that's not what auditors do. Auditors, you read the thing and it says, we base our judgments on what we're told by the client. And the fact is the client made certain representations which turned out not to be true. And the auditor, you know, with the auditors, that's not their job. They just make sure that the numbers line up and so forth. They don't look into the reality of these numbers at all.
But you're not suggesting then that Chief Lorenzen be bound to continue this after he's in place? He has a chance to evaluate the landscape, make a new hire,
Absolutely.
maybe.
Yes, absolutely. It's just getting somebody to be hired. Typically, we have to approve a contract. I don't know what the money involved would be. I just want somebody to be available, and I hope that Long would avail himself of that and use the person as a resource. The person wouldn't report to the board, wouldn't in any way interrupt the chain of command. Just be a resource that could be used.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Questions? Michelle, any public comment?
If there's any public comment, please raise your hand or press *9 on your phone. And I see none.
Please call the roll.
Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Jones?
No.
Director Crawley?
No.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director McLaughlin?
Aye. All right, that brings us to the last item of our agenda, nomination and election of board president and vice president for calendar year 2022.
Jim?
Rob?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Chuck Bernstein as president.
Michelle, help me out here. Do these require seconds?
They do not.
All right, so that, are there any further nominations?
I would like to, Jim, if I may.
Yes, Robert.
I would like to nominate Virginia, Jane Crowley.
All right. Are there any further nominations? Michelle, if you could help me out here, how do we typically?
So I think that we should take them in order with the first nomination by Director Solano to nominate Director Bernstein as the 2022 board president. And if the majority votes for Director Bernstein to be the president, then there's no need to continue on with the second nomination.
All right, very good.
So, Jim.
Yes, Virginia.
I actually would. I appreciate Robert's nominating me, but I actually would like to not be in the mix for this.
All right, very good.
So we would have one nomination.
All right. Michelle, if you could help me out here, do we
sure?
So do a roll call vote?
We could go ahead and do a roll call vote It could be, I'll do a roll call vote if you'd like me to do that. Director Bernstein?
Can you restate what we're voting on, just to be clear?
That you'll be the 2022 board president. Director Bernstein, you'll be the board president.
I'll vote aye.
Thank you. Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Crawley?
Aye.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director McLaughlin?
Aye. All right, very good. That brings us to the vice president position. I'd like to nominate Robert Solano. Are there any other nominations? All right, Michelle, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Crawley?
No.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director McLaughlin?
Aye. All right, well, congratulations to Chuck and Rob. Could you scroll up, Michelle?
Sure, yes. Thank you.
There we go. All right, committee reports. Virginia, anything from ePrep?
Nothing really significant, except that Constant Associates, I think, is trying to finalize its report, which we should get. They're doing more interviews, I hope.
Chuck, finance?
We discussed all the items that were on the finance committee agenda tonight.
Okay. Rob, strategic planning?
We did not meet, Jim.
All right.
Can I just add something though, please?
Yeah, please do, Chuck.
I think our vote tonight on the management audit reflects a lot of work that Rob Solano did in pushing that forward and reading drafts and so forth. So anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge his championing of that audit process.
Great.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you. HR committee met and all of our items were discussed in some form or fashion this evening. Liaison reports.
Jim?
Virginia?
Yes. So I attended to a couple of Atherton events as the Atherton liaison. I attended the farewell barbecue and the last ADAP training, the farewell barbecue for Tom Pressing, and it was very well attended. And I think Tom was very appreciative of the support that he's gotten from his fellow residents, the ADAPT members, and Chief McCauley, the police chief of Atherton. And I also attended the ribbon cutting for the new town center, which I thought was wonderful and lovely. I think it's a dream that they've finally realized, and I'm very happy for the town. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other liaison reports?
Jim?
Robert?
Robert or Rob?
I'm sorry, Rob.
Okay. Yo, I also attended the ADAT ceremony and the retraining for that Tom Pershing put on. And I also attended the ribbon cutting over at the Atherton Town Center, as you did also, Mr. President. But, I want to give Chief Schaefer my deep thanks for taking over as interim fire chief and for his family. Chief Schaefer's professionalism, just true integrity, and the sacrifice that he has done for us the past few months are just outstanding. And, my personal thank you, Chief, for all that you've done, not only for us as a board, but for the fire district and for the community. Just a huge thank you. That's all I have to say, Jim. Thank you.
Right, thank you. You beat me to it. I was going to, express my thoughts about Chief Schaefer's retirement as well. Not just the last few months where you really did step up and take on the mantle of leadership for the agency, but I don't want to highlight that and ignore the 30 years that preceded that, where you were a leader in the training. And I know in talking to you and seeing you, observing you, and others that work with you, they all say the same thing about you and your training, that it was all heartfelt. It was, that, you play the way you train, and it was so important to you that everybody be trained to the highest level. I'm sure I'm going to get it wrong, but you have a phrase, if you're not working, you need to be training. Just a constant process. And I know that, that occurred throughout your career, your involvement with labor early on. So again, it's not, you didn't come to work and just worry about Mike Schaefer. You were worried about the people that you worked with the organization, the well-being of the organization, the improvement of the organization. So as a fellow public safety professional, thank you so much for your years of service. I know, you pay a price, your family pays a price for that kind of dedication, and especially the effort required to rise in the ranks the way you did. So kudos to a job well done.
Thank you, Director. It's really been a privilege to work here for over 30 years, and it's truly a privilege to work with the people I get to work with. The only reason I've ever been able to be successful is just because the people around me. It's just an incredible group of people that work here, and they are really the keys to the success of myself and the success of the district. But I really appreciate the confidence the board had in me to put me in this position for the period of time. And just thank you very much. And I'm really going to miss working here and working with everybody I've had the chance to interact with, but just trying to leave the district better than I found it. And there's a lot of wonderful people coming up through the ranks, and we're in really good shape. And to that point, thank you to the board for bringing on board Chief Lorenzen. I would say that I'm sad I'm not going to have a chance to work with him, because he truly is. He's going to be a really wonderful fire chief. And thank you for putting Chief Coyle in the interim position until Chief Lorenzen gets there. I think it's going to be an excellent educational tool for Chief Coyle. And thank you for everything the board has done to help me be successful. So much appreciated, and thank you.
Virginia?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to say something about that for item 18, kind of reports of the directors. I don't know if we're there yet.
Sure, we're kind of out of order, but go ahead.
So I want to thank Mike for his service as well. I mean, ever since I've been on this board for the last 10 years, he's been very, very helpful, and I appreciate his professionalism, his knowledge, and his leadership. So Mike, thank you. Good luck in retirement and have fun. And we know where to find you if we need anything. But in all honesty, I think that you have done a really great job for the district during the time that you've been here, which I know has been for decades. And so thank you. And thank you to your family as well for lending you to the Menlo Park Fire Protection District community. So that's
Thank
one
you,
thing.
Director.
I have one other report, if that's okay, Jim, for me to just.
Could you hold it until I think we're the parade?
Are we still commending Mike?
Yeah, the Schaefer
okay,
parade.
I'll hold it until y'all are done.
Has a couple more entrants here. Chuck?
Okay, but I am not done yet.
All right. Chuck?
I had a number of things also, but I certainly want to echo what people have said about Mike Schaefer's work. I think he has a personal style that is kind of reassuring and positive, and I think he's done a very good job, and I appreciate that. And I really hadn't had much opportunity to work with him prior to that, so this was really my primary introduction. But anyway, thank you. I think you've done a great job at keeping the ship moving forward, and I think things are in better shape now than they were 6 months ago or a year ago. So thank you.
Thank you, Director.
And Robert.
Chief, I want to echo all of the accolades and sentiment of a job that's well done in a short period of time. Because it's a lot of pressure in that, trying to move forward and still trying to hold a rudder straight. And I think you have done a great job in making it happen. And I'm sure your wife will appreciate the honey-do list that's waiting for you during your retirement. And so I'm just saying, rest up, because it would never end. So congratulations, and a job well done, and enjoy your retirement, because I know you're going to surface somewhere else doing something else far related as soon as you get your rest. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. And I can only reiterate that it's the success of everybody around me and the hard work of everybody around me. This is not a job that's done by one person. So my thanks to everybody that I get to work with for doing such a great job in what they do. So thank you.
All right. Virginia, back to you.
Yeah, a couple of things. The first one is, I've heard from various people that there's a problem with the contract with AMR, the ambulance provider for this county. And 2 years ago, when I was the board president and when the fire board reviewed the AMR contract, I was concerned that AMR might not be able to fulfill its obligation of providing consistent ALS service. And from what I understand, AMR is now providing BLS service and barely able to support ALS service because of staffing. And from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, that's kind of been a bit of a challenge for our staffing, as well as all the fire agencies across the county. And so I am hoping that at our next meeting in the chief's report, that we might be able to get an update on what's going on. From what I'm hearing, there are lots of force backs, and I'm just concerned about what the status of that contract is right now. I'm concerned for the public, and I'm concerned for our employees. So, and maybe that concern is unfounded, but this is what I'm hearing, and I hope that it gets addressed. I mean, not that we have to fix this right away. I don't know how it's going to be fixed, but I'd love to hear about how we're dealing with these challenges at this time for that issue. And there was something else I was going to say, Jim, and I just lost my train of thought. So can I get back to you?
When it comes back to you, we'll come back to you. Chuck, I see your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I had several items that I wanted to mention. One is that I also attended the two functions in Atherton, and I tell you, I think the board members who were there were acknowledged by the officials in Atherton. I think the feelings between fire board individuals and Atherton town council individuals was very positive, and I was very encouraged about that. I think we've perhaps moved on now from those issues that surfaced previously. And I was reminded of that because coincidentally, and it might give a chuckle to board members, one of the proposals we received for the management audit was from Matrix Associates, which was the group that did the Atherton detachment study. And in fact, the majority of people that were on their proposal were the same people that worked on that. So kind of came around full circle in some way. I was disappointed that we didn't have the luncheon today. I understand the reason why, but I think that there were people that needed to be thanked. We've had an opportunity with Chief Schaefer here, but also I wanted to mention the work of Jim, you this year. I don't believe we've ever had as many, I know we've never had as many meetings as we had this year. I would venture to say that we had at least twice as many as we've ever had before. I think we accomplished a lot. I think you had to steer the ship, and I think you did a great job sort of, keeping people together and moving things forward. So I wanted to thank you for doing that. And that's something that I hope could have happened at the luncheon, but we won't have that chance, at least not right now. I also wanted to thank the board for your confidence in me for next year. And I pledge to you to try to do everything that Jim did this year, to be even-handed, even-tempered, and to be inclusive of everybody. I will be asking you very shortly for preferences for committees and so forth. But I wanted to just mention, and I really appreciate that Michelle has put out this agenda, because it reminded me that the committee meetings for January are before we have the meeting where the committees are kind of ratified. And I'm going to be asking for the committees to meet in January. There's some agenda items that are important, and I don't think they can wait a month. And so I'm going to ask that those meetings be held. And since there's no new members of the board, nobody was elected in November or anything, that we keep the same committee groups for the January meeting, not beyond perhaps, but for January, we keep the same constitution. I think the HR committee is in the middle of dealing with this class and comp study. The E-Prep committee is in the middle of, I think, getting the final study from Constant and Associates. Virginia has just mentioned the AMR issue, which I think could be something for E-Prep or possibly even strategic planning. I'm also very concerned about the status of dispatch in our area that county runs. We're running twice the normal time for dispatch. And one of the, I think, wonderful things about the addition of Chief Lorenzen is that he operated both, or operates both ambulance service and dispatch in Ventura County. So he's experienced in that, and I think can help us arrive at good conclusions. So I'm going to ask when the year is new, I'm going to ask that those same committee with the same membership meet in January and take stock of where they are, what's happening, and try to complete whatever wasn't finished this year. And then I think that's really all. But I really wanted to thank you for your confidence, and again, I pledge to. I know what I wanted to thank. I thought the board, and this is a compliment to everybody, I thought the board really came together in a productive way in the selection and hiring of Chief Lorenzen. I think it was something where we experienced a unity that has been somewhat rare. And I think it was a respectful process. And I think it was a successful process. So I wanted to thank all the board members who kind of came together to do that in a way that I think worked for everybody, and it's going to be a terrific kind of new day for our residents. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you,
Kim?
Virginia?
I thought about what I was going to say. So we received an email from the California Special Districts Association that we received $43,225 for the COVID-19 fiscal relief for special districts. So I just wanted everyone to know. It was kind of an odd email because I didn't know if everyone got it or if it were just, you know, the email. And it was like, oh, like a CSDA, you know, this is what we've done kind of thing. But I did open the attachment, and that is the amount of money that we received as a fire district. And I don't know, Mike, if you knew about that, or did we apply for that? I mean, how did that get on the radar? Was this just, it looks like it was just fiscal relief for special districts in general from whatever surplus there was at the state level. And maybe CSDA did something, but anyway, I just wanted everyone to know that that was the actual content of the attachment that CSDA sent us, or the link, you know, that we did get some money. So that's good. But I didn't know if you knew that, Mike.
Oh, hi, Director. Thank you. Yeah, I had been discussing that with Long Lamb. Actually, we were actually just discussing that tonight. I was going to give that to Chief Coyle to give to the board for next month, once I got my arms around the story on that. But if Long Lamb would like to speak to that, if you wanted more information, or if you wanted it during the next month's meeting, that's your choice.
I mean, we got the money, so you know, however, it's up to the board. I mean, it's 9:40, so whatever the board wants, it doesn't matter to me. I just didn't know what the process was.
We did apply. It was 4 special districts. There's a lot of criteria on how much you get based on your budgeting and what you had budgeted for multiple years, and whether you lost any revenues, and then what kind of money you spent on COVID-related items. And we did get some money refunded to us through the grant, but not all that we spent, but any little bit helps, of course.
Thank you.
Robert? I'm sorry, Rob Solano. I don't know why I'm having such difficulty with that tonight.
Part of my alias, Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had sent Chief Schaefer and Chief Coyle to try to find out. I know that Chief Schaefer, when I originally sent that from the Special District Association in California, which I'm an executive director of, where they said they had $300 million that they wanted to give away specifically for special districts. And Chief, once again, I want to thank you for putting in for the grant, which was the suggestion from the Special District Association of California. And we were able to at least get a small amount. And I was waiting for that report from Chief Coyle and yourself as to what we actually applied for, and if we did apply for an amount. Because if you saw the breakdowns, I mean, I believe we're the only special district, fire district in San Mateo County that got the money or got a grant. Is that right, Chief?
I am not positive we're the only ones. I do remember discussing this with you, and Long Lamb did put in for that grant funding. And through all of their different formulas, we did end up with some refund, which is always nice. And it was specifically for special districts. But I would assume you'll have a more in-depth report next month.
Great. Thank you again, Chief, for putting in for that grant money for us.
Absolutely, Director. Thank you.
All right. And President's report, Chuck, I want to thank you for the kind words. I think we all knew that selecting the new chief this year was going to be the biggest objective that we had for the year. It wasn't always pretty, it was like sausage making, and I hope all those meetings, I hope you found them to be worthwhile. I think they were necessary to get us to where we are. And I think we don't always agree. I think we're all very passionate about the positions that we hold, but I think we're united by the same thing, and that was wanting to do the right thing for the district, and in turn, the communities served by the district. And I think when the music stopped, we got it right. I think we made the right choice. We were able to separate the wheat from the chaff, and we got it right. And I think we can all take a lot of pride in getting there. And I think we're going to be very well served by the new chief, and whatever challenges face us going forward, I think we're very well positioned to take them head on. So thank you all for the confidence you had in me this year. I think again, it was very much the group effort in accomplishing the things that we did. So thank you for that. I look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow at the event at Station 1. It should be if it's raining, we'll be glad it's indoors. So with that, unless there's I'll ask Michelle if there's any public comment.
If we have any public comments, please raise your hand or click *9 on your phone. And I see none.
Jim, could you expand a little bit on the event tomorrow, just to make sure we have it? I understood that the various stations start coming in at 11:30 in the morning to eat. And can you tell me roughly how long?
I'll ask Chief Schaefer or Chief Coyle to offer a description.
Thank you.
Dan, why don't you?
I'm going to have to defer to Chief Coyle on this. I'm not too in the loop.
So for tomorrow, we canceled the open house, which would have been open to the public and outside agencies and dignitaries, and that was scheduled for 1:30. However, we are continuing with the lunch, which will start around 11:30, rotating the on-duty companies, and all employees obviously welcome, and certainly hope that all the board members can be there as well. Around 11:30, we anticipate wrapping that up around 12:30 or 1 o'clock. And so Chief Schaefer's family will be there, and just current employees as far as the crews rotating through and everyone else coming over for a quick lunch. And thank you, board members, for your generous donations, and it'll be a great opportunity. It's obviously not everything we would like to do for Chief Schaefer, to express our gratitude and appreciation for everything he's done, as well as his family, but at least we're able to do something. And it will be in the apparatus bay at Station 1, hopefully with the doors open if it's not too crazy with the weather.
Chief, I know that we did, or volunteers from the board, whoever wants to participate, agreed to host the food or the meat or whatever it is. But would you please be sure to be assertive about requesting reimbursement to yourself or whomever actually put out the funds to purchase all this?
I certainly appreciate that, Director. And again, thank you for your generosity. A true testament to Chief Schaefer and how much we all love him. I've been declining additional contributions because I'm starting to turn a profit. So.
Okay, well, I don't know that. I will find you tomorrow and I will do my part. I just want to make sure that you're not shy about letting me know.
I will not be shy about letting you know. And thank you again, sir.
Thank you.
Jim, I have one more thing. Yeah, so I didn't want you to think that I forgot to thank you, because I do think that you did a great job, Jim, and it's been a tough year. You and Robert have had just very challenging years with this pandemic, and it hasn't been easy dealing with Zoom meetings. And, even though we had our desire to meet in person, and thankfully we were able to do some of that for the chief search as a very small group. It was a challenging year, and you met the challenge, Jim. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Virginia. And thank you for jogging my memory on something. I don't think we took action on declaring the need to meet remotely. Stephen,
was that not on the consent?
It was on the consent calendar.
Yeah, it was on the consent.
On the consent. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. This is what I mean, though. It's like all of these unexpected new things that come up, and it's just ever changing. And it's just been it's been challenging, but I think we've all worked through this. So thanks for your leadership.
All right, Rob.
You know, I can't remember how many times I thanked you for the job that you've done during the past year. I kept reminding you as board president, I maybe did 1/16 of what you've done. And, you know, gosh, thank you. And I just wanted to make sure I thank you publicly also. So thanks again.
Thank you very much for that. If there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Michelle.
Yes, Director Bernstein.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Crawley.
Aye.
Director Solano.
Aye.
And Director McLaughlin.
Aye. All right, good night, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow.
Happy
Good night,
holidays.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.